Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and welcome back to Everyday Consent. We had a lot of great footage with Erin last week, so this is the beginning of part 2 of that interview. Are there any communities that you're a part of that have a particular relationship to consent?
Yeah, the fusion dance community has a long and storied relationship with consent. In fact, all social dance communities do. The dance community, especially the fusion community, has a relationship with consent because we have a lot of polyamorous people, a lot of sex-positive people, a lot of non-traditional gender expression people, and so sex and sexuality is very much a part of our community just day to day.
Right.
And sometimes that manifests on the dance floor, and sometimes that manifests in interactions between members of the community off the dance floor. So being in the fusion community or the West Coast Swing community really puts a lot of emphasis on consent. Unfortunately, I think that part of the reason for that is that the social dance community as a whole has actually a kind of bad history with consent. There's always stories about instructors in any given community or well-respected performers in any given community taking advantage of that kind of sex-positive environment and their position of power. The dance community as a whole reacts and tries to do a better job of enforcing consent in various ways.
Sure.
In particular, like dance exchanges or events or venues having written, agreed upon codes of conduct and circumstances under which they reserve the right to kick anyone out. I think the institution of codes of conduct has been a mixed blessing.
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said for having a written code of conduct that says these are the kinds of behaviors that we expect people to adhere to while at this venue or this event or whatever. These are the kinds of behaviors that we do not hold for, and these are the kinds of punishments that we reserve the right to mete out. I think that's all, it's definitely very well intentioned, and I think that's good that people are thinking about these things and trying to make communities explicitly safer spaces. Not every code of conduct that I've seen has been particularly well written or well implemented, and there's something to be said for the loss of trust that happens in a community when you say, rather than everyone in this community behaving like a decent human being, everyone in this community is going to abide by these rules.
Interesting.
That creates a different dynamic. And I don't think it should create a different dynamic. I think that in the ideal world, the list of rules that gets written down on a piece of paper is exactly the list of rules that everyone had in their head under the heading decent human being.
Sure.
But that's not always the case. It doesn't always work out that way. Preventative measures are really hard to measure against like real world impact. If someone is kind of a creep and gets asked to leave for the rest of the night, maybe no one was actually hurt beforehand. Maybe someone really truly was. But the community as a whole doesn't necessarily know, and the end result is bad blood. And I don't know what there is to be done about that. I think that protecting members of the community from people who don't respect them or respect boundaries is super, super important. And in the ideal world, we would all just have that decent human being heading and everything would be fine. And in the absence of that, I don't really know how to how to establish community guidelines about exactly what is or is not appropriate in a given space.
I think to an extent, codes of conduct or community guidelines are really just a formalization, somebody's attempt to put into writing and make clear what those, like, be a good person rules are. But everybody kind of has a different set of rules.
And even larger communities are getting into this problem space. I don't remember which state it was that passed the law about affirmative verbal consent.
That was
California. That's in many ways very similar to like a dance community's code of conduct, where like a dance community says you must ask verbal permission to do aerials with a partner before you begin a dance in which you want to do aerials. Because some partners are just like not comfortable with aerials at all.
Yeah.
And if you try to do one, someone's going to get physically injured. But then there's two partners who dance together a lot, know that they're comfortable doing aerials, and then they do an aerial, and someone's like, you were doing aerials! Did you ask for affirmative verbal consent beforehand? And they're like, no, we forgot. Out! Right? I mean, I don't actually know that that's ever happened, but it's certainly possible under certain codes of conduct that I have read. And there's also the fact that if, in many cases, if someone breaks the word of the code of conduct, but remains within the spirit of the code of conduct, they will not be reported.
In a lot of ways, this is similar to some of the discussions about the honor code at the school that we went to. The general understanding to a lot of students is that it was the spirit of the code that mattered. Rule 1 is don't be a jackass.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Having rule number 1 be don't be a jackass or be a decent human being is pretty good. That gets 95% of the message across to 95% of the people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fantastic way to do it. On the other hand, I've also seen dance communities whose code of conduct is be a good person, we reserve the right to kick you out if someone complains. And sometimes that works for them, and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
In particular, the cases in which it doesn't work for them are when someone doesn't get kicked out soon enough in the opinions of the people that that person was hurting.
Sure.
Because there's not like, you've crossed this line.
Into being a bad person.
Right. There's, we reserve the right to kick you out, and someone comes and complains, and they're like, okay, I'll talk to them. And then someone complains again the next week, and they're like, okay, I'll talk to this person again. And then someone complains the third week. It's like, this person has been doing bad things for the last 3 weeks, why are they still here?
Right.
And then people are sad that action wasn't taken sooner.
Right. Thank you, Erin, for being on the show today. If you have any questions for Erin, then you can put them down in the comments or email them to me at everydayconsent@gmail.com. If you like this video, then please press like. If you want to see more from me, then please subscribe to the channel. Happy consenting, folks. I will see you next week. Do we want to pause the camera while I do that?
I think it's time to make sure my vlog is uploaded.
Oh, okay.
Just like literally 30 more seconds.
Hey! I'm the only silly one here.